Welcome back to the Book Bros. I'm one of the Book Bros. My name is Stefan.
And I'm Alexz.
Today we're going to be talking about Rangers Apprentice. For a quick synopsis of this novel, it's more like a medieval spy novel with slight fantasy with some of the races that actually exist in this novel. It starts off with a couple characters, small characters that are 15. Mm-hmm. The way that they're raised, they're all orphans, and they get placed in a certain role that they learn about their role in society, like a warrior or like the spy, like the main novel, the main character that we follow.
Yeah, it's a coming-of-age story following mainly Will, but also his friends, and sort of their discovery of like who they are and what they're gonna do and how they grow as characters. Mm-hmm. And it sort of takes place in like a medieval fantasy setting with the implication of magic, but it's sort of just left up to you.
So for our thoughts on this novel, right at the beginning, there's the epilogue, and it starts off with prologue.
Yeah.
Isn't it the epilogue?
No, the epilogue is like after the final chapter. Prologue, epilogue.
I thought it was the other way around.
No.
Oh, fuck me then.
So, the prologue happens, and it's sort of like the big bad villain that happened in the past. It's sort of just a modern look at our characters are 15. In this last 15 years, he's been quiet. He's been forgotten about, basically. Yeah. He's become a childhood story. Where is he at this exact moment? And you just get a little glimmer into his thoughts before the story takes place. So you get to know the villain and his side of the story. But not really.
He becomes like that story that your parents tell you because you're not going to bed. Mm-hmm. That's like the main overall villain for like all this whole series that has like 12, 14 books.
Well, he's only really the main villain for the first 2 or 3.
Yeah. Well, I guess so, yeah. It's like, because I know there's more things that come up after that. Mm. But anyways, past the prologue, I really enjoyed this book. We've read it before. Mm-hmm. I completely forgot everything about it because I think this is one of the first fantasy books I read. Mm. And I remember some things, much to the point, I didn't remember the first book at all. Like, 0 things about the first book. Okay. And I absolutely loved it. Okay. Like, it was a very quick read. Mm-hmm. I think I read it in like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it's not a long book. It's a very light read, but it's very good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like, even as an adult at like 26 years old, reading it, they don't age very quickly, but they like grow up in like personality. They become adults very quickly.
Yeah, they mature very quickly. That's and right. You go this series covers Will's life basically. Mm-hmm. So in 12 or 13 books, you basically get to experience him from 15 years of age, like 14, hitting 15. 15, yeah. To his death, I'm assuming. I haven't finished the last book.
Mm-mm. They were still coming out when I first started reading, and I think there's only like 7 in total when I first started reading this. Yeah, and then more came out after like a while.
12 now plus a sequel series.
Yeah. So like it's a fantastic read. The way that they mature, the way that the characters grow up into their roles that they're supposed to, and just adult themes about what actually happens in like life and how people would actually think.
Yeah, they don't act like, oh, this is a character that has to do this certain thing. This is a person, and he's doing these things because of reasons. Yeah. He's having his own issues and trying to overcome them however he can. Yeah. And if he makes mistakes, he deals with them. They cause consequences. And their past relationships as well, like Horace and Will's relationship. Yeah,
especially Horace's relationship. Because Horace is also sort of a main character, at least in the first one. There's a couple chapters focused around him and what's happening to him and why he is how he is. Yes. Especially in the earlier things before they realize what's happening. But
yeah, because at first you think, oh, he's just a bully, that he's going to be one of the minor villains that you have to overcome. But then you get to know him because you get some chapters from his perspective, and it's like, oh, okay, he's dealing with all this shit, and he actually, I feel he gets more problems that he has to overcome than Will, in fact, in this book. Will sort of gets a very main character-esque, like, okay, he's got this thing, and then he beats it, and he's getting more powerful, and he's getting stronger, and he's gonna eventually get strong enough to save the day. Mm-hmm. But Horace, you don't have that expectation with him. It's just, this is this other guy. He's not the main character. He could lose at any point, so the stakes seem a lot realer with him.
Yeah, like especially with at the beginning of the book. Like we're going to spoilers, obviously, sorta. Right now, especially at the beginning of the book, you're like, yeah, he's the bully. He's gonna be like a main villain of this story. No, he gets because he in the story he's a very big 15-year-old. He's a natural fighter, so he goes into the army, right?
Which is Will's dream.
Which is Will's dream.
So like when that happens, and Will, spoiler again, doesn't get into it right away, it's like he's been the bigger guy. He's been a little bullying, like childhood bullying, like play fights and whatnot. But then you've got this conflict where it's like Will wants this. He's always been sort of the upper hand, bad guy, and now he's taking what Will wants. It's like that's just a recipe for a villain in the making.
Villain in the making, yeah. But then when it shows from Horace's perspective, because there's like a battle school that he goes to before becoming an actual army, right? Like boot camp essentially, and he gets freaking bullied hard, like Horace does. And like
he's a natural fighter again.
Yeah, there's like unnecessary amounts of bullying from like from a couple upper years that actually isn't allowed in the school. No. That you come to find out later. Like that's not actually supposed to be happening.
It's not like Horace knows that. Yeah, he's an orphan who just got into this prestigious school that like people like nobles pay for their children to go to, and suddenly he's outshining everyone, and then so he thinks, well, this is just natural training, whatever. I gotta just tough it out.
But, this happens to everyone. And so he takes it out on the other main characters like Will and stuff.
Will and their childhood friends.
Yeah, and childhood friends, until Will's master goes and being like, that doesn't seem right.
Yep.
And goes and see what's actually happening.
Yes.
And tells the headmaster of the battle school. And then Horace becomes like an actual good person. You see where like, oh, they actually have a friendship, and this is going to be a thing throughout the books now. Yeah. That they're like partners in these two different areas of expertise.
Yeah, this is definitely two people who didn't see eye to eye at first, and then throughout this series, if you especially if you read more, but even just in this first book, they become sort of enemies to rivals to best friends. Like they're like oath sworn brothers in blood. Yeah. Like they have the tightest bond ever, and you don't necessarily see that as much in the first book, but going out through it, the whole series and all the stuff that they do together, it's just
the first book is really like the start of it.
Yeah, the first book
it really sets up for the rest of what's happening.
It's a good book by itself, but like it just lays the groundwork for everything to come, and that's another thing. This book is kind of amazing in that it sets up a main story sort of thing, and it doesn't finish it, but at the same time, it still tells a complete story. Like
it's really good at it.
Yeah.
Like the author's fantastic.
You don't expect that, like, you'd expect the main villain to be defeated at the end of the first book. You don't expect a cliffhanger. But at the same time, in this book, that's exactly what happens. Except, if you just read this first book by itself, it could be a complete story. You could say, oh, I guess this is all the main villain did. You know? And they thwarted his last ditch attempt. But if you read the rest of the books, you get this whole story that this is just a minor part of.
Yes. Yeah, it's fantastic. Like I said, like I'm looking at this.
We're both fans of this book.
I was amazing. Like I was expecting to go in and remember everything immediately. I didn't, and I'm kind of happy that I didn't because it was such a good read. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll read the rest of them just to get the rest of the story between him and like Horace and like the main overall arcing villain that's going to be obviously there.
Yeah, I remembered a bit more, and when I started reading, the prologue was a little dry, as it's a childhood story basically, and I sort of remembered a bunch of that stuff, so it wasn't very new. And then the first chapter started a little slow. I was like, this isn't gonna be as much fun as I remembered it. But after that first chapter, I was like, hell yeah! This is boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's done. I finished it in like 4 hours.
Yeah,
we just powered through it because it was that good.
Yeah, I was like, this. Just for disclaimer, me and Alex are very, very quick readers. Like, if it's just a normal reader, it would probably take you a little longer than 4 hours, but we can be like power readers, and we can read very, very quick.
we're definitely the sort of people who, once we start reading, if we're interested, that's our day. We're just gonna keep doing this task. We're gonna stay on task and finish this. If we lose interest, we'll drop it and it will take a while.
Yeah.
Like with the last book we did.
Yeah.
But this one, boom, done in like 4 hours a night.
4 hours, easy. It was an afternoon. It was a good afternoon.
The Ruins of Gorlan, written by John Flanagan, absolutely amazing. He's an amazing author.
It was a really good read, and again, I'm probably gonna read more at some point. Get the other books.
Yeah, I've got the whole series basically. So
yeah. So I'm gonna read them. Yeah.
So how we would rate this book, on terms of plot, I'd give it a 4 stars. It's good, not the most original plot. You know, it's kind of generic. You know, main character coming into his own sort of thing, and like bad guy that you have to defeat. But it's a good plot line. Like, it's not a bad plot line. So I'd give it, 4 stars.
Yeah, the plot, I'd probably give it 4. Yeah, 4. I'd agree. Like it's a setup novel, especially like it really sets up how the world works, which is really nice, and how the different divisions work in said world, and where it's really leading to. But it is a setup novel.
If I were doing the first 2 books as like one book, maybe I'd give it a 5, because that would
that's like the whatever like this overall arc. Right, it would probably give it a 5, but like just for this novel specifically, I would give it a 4. It is a coming of age, like Alexz said, and when they really come into themselves, it's great. It's fantastic. I love it,
dude.
But, like,
the adventures they have in the later books are just perfect. Perfect. 5s. 5s if we do those.
Yeah, that's 4 stars for just the main plot.
Yeah.
For the subplots with like Horace.
There's the Horace, there's a little bit of Jenny and Alice, which you don't really find out about until later on, but they are being set up now. Yeah, I was gonna say they're
there, but like they don't have chapters.
Yeah, they don't have chapters, but
you hear what they're doing, but like
and you sort of learn the relationship a little bit, and then that gets built on in later books.
Yes.
So it's subplots are starting there. Then you've got the other apprentice of Halt's other apprentice.
Yeah, that's not really a subplot either. He's just another character.
Well, he's another character.
I would say only really Horace is the main subplot.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because that's...
The other ones, the characters are there, and they exist, and you hear about what's happening, but they're not subplots because they don't actually exist in the novel.
In this book, they're not really subplots yet. No. So, I guess that would be 2.5, 3?
I would just say Horace is the main subplot.
Yeah, but like, how would you rate that then?
Oh, what was the subplot I really enjoyed?
It's a good subplot. It's not a bad subplot.
I would say 4.
For me. But like, talking about subplots in the book, I'd give it a 2 just because there's one subplot. It's a good one, but it's not all of those other subplots coming together, which they do in later books. So 4 if we're just talking about how good it is, but on like the quantity of subplots, 2.
Yeah, if you want to talk quantity, I don't really care about quantity. I care about quality of the said subplot.
Yeah.
So like I'm gonna say 4 for the subplots, because the subplots that do exist, like Horace's, which is essentially the subplot of this whole thing, is absolutely fantastic, and how he becomes into like himself is awesome. I love it. I love that subplot. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a 4. So for character development.
5 stars.
5 stars. Easy 5 stars. It's like just the way that
he focuses in on the main characters. He really polishes them from rough stones into diamonds. As I like to do in my metaphors.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, it's like just the way that Will grows up and matures into the character that he is, the character that he becomes.
Will's like a very generic sort of growth of like, oh, I've got some minor problems, but then I get these skills that I'm good at. Boom. But then you've got Horace, who's got a completely different set of character development, where he doesn't get the main character treatment in this book, where you're like, oh yeah, he's gonna be fine. It's whatever, right? You're like, oh shit, I'm about to see a villain be made here. This guy's about to become, and then you see what actually happens, and you're just like, nice.
It's really, especially at the beginning, where you're like, yeah, he's gonna be a villain of some sort,
or at least he's gonna like how the bullies get treated, where they do some bullying, get discovered, and then kicked out of the story, basically.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this is what's gonna happen.
He's just gonna turn into a terrible person because of this. But no, it's like he grows with it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's finally discovered, like, the bully's bullying Horace, it just makes it, like, his character development just soar.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Essentially, just because he's going through this hardship that he hasn't experienced before and he thinks is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And when he realizes it's not normal and it gets fixed,
And
it
then,
just helps it.
Then he gets sort of a reality check when they go boar hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, the what happens during that boar hunt is, whew, that's some spicy character development right there.
Spicy character development. Spicy.
And then there's Holt. Holt gets a little bit of polish as well, where he's the mysterious, like, wise mentor who's just a complete badass.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, I really like how, especially, he gets put into peril. Like, he gets in trouble, but they never diminish his badassness. Like, you're like, oh, Will has to go save his mentor. So his mentor, obviously, like, they're obviously gonna take away a little bit of his character. They're gonna give him the idiot ball or whatever,
Yeah.
But no. He's like, you get to see his badass in full.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, Holt's character development is more based on you find out how he grew up, not grew up, his past achievements.
Yeah.
And then you start realizing how badass he is.
And how they connect to, like, the other characters, and it's like...
Yeah, and that's when you realize, like, that's how you get Holt's character development, is that you find out his past achievements connected to what's happening now, and how badass Holt is, and, like, how good he is.
Yeah.
And that's when it's just like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, it's not normal character development.
No.
But, like, because he doesn't actually grow as a person. You just find out how badass he is, and that's character development because you find out how badass he is.
Because, from this beginning, like, generic mentor dude to, like, no, I kind of like this dude.
Yeah,
you get to know more about him.
Yeah, it's awesome. I loved it. So 5 stars.
Yeah, probably my favorite character too.
Yeah, 5 out of 5. Is it your favorite character?
I think so.
Yeah. No,
Like,
pretty close. Yeah, that and Halt for me.
Like, Halt, Will, and Horace, all 3 of them are just... It's hard to pick a favorite.
Yeah, it is. It's hard because they're all really good characters. Yeah. 5 out of 5. Easy.
For writing, this is written towards a teen audience. So the writing is very easily digestible. There's no crazy complex words. There's no issues in, like, spelling or grammar. It's officially published and stuff. Like, my mother has recently reread the entire series, and she's like 40, 50. She's old. She's old. But, this is a book series that, like, you can get into at any age.
Yeah,
really
easy. Yeah.
It's a coming of age story, so it's very relatable to everyone who's come of age, basically, and even people who haven't yet, because they're like, oh, this is sort of what it will be like, even if
even
if it's a bit of a fantasy,
even a bit of fantasy. Yeah, the writing is very digestible.
Yeah,
it's really easy to read. It's meant like Alexz said, it's meant for a teen audience, so, like, it's going to be easy to read. You can get into it easy. So 5 out of 5. It's professional.
Yeah,
you're not going to find any issues. It went through a publisher.
Yep.
Right? So you're not going to find any issues with these kind of novels.
There's no fuck up.
Yeah, there's no fuck up. It's like, I didn't see any fuck up at least.
Foreshadowing and plot holes. If you're talking about foreshadowing just within this book, which is what we are, it's actually really good. There's the Kalkara are absolutely, like, the way they get brought into the story is through foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And you don't see them coming until they're there.
Yeah.
But, like, once they're there, you see all the pieces leading up to them, and you're like, oh yeah, they were talking about this stuff. Like, it was not coming out of the blue. No.
It wasn't coming out of the blue at all. Like, the foreshadowing for this book specifically is, like, easy 5 out of 5. It's, like, because of the way that they did the foreshadowing, like, at the beginning, like, oh, that's weird, something happened to this one dude. And then
there's this other thing.
Yeah, there's another thing that's happened. I'm like, oh, that's odd. And it's like small snippets of what's happening.
It's like nice world development. Cool.
Cool. World development. Like, the main character's not really worried about it.
Yeah, he's
right. Like, Will's not worried about it. He's learning stuff, but you can tell through Halt, like, through these small snippets, that he's worried about it.
You see his reaction. He's like, huh. Like, he's considering this.
He's considering it. kind of worried about it. He's like, that's weird. It's like, that's like, I don't know that character. Like, the character that, through the snippets, he's like, that character wouldn't do that.
Or, you know...
Or, like, that person wouldn't do that or end up like that. So
or,
it's
like,
weird.
This doesn't make sense. This guy...
It doesn't connect.
Yeah. And so you start to see that, and that's also, I guess, foreshadowing for how the later books will play out, because that's going to be sort of a theme in the series, is like, there's going to be these small snippets, because as we sort of said, it's kind of a spy novel, like medieval, of like...
Medieval spy novel,
like, putting all these pieces together, finding all these secrets, and coming to this massive conclusion of, like, this is what's happening. This is the big confrontation.
This is the confrontation of said book, with, like, overall arc that we have to fix. It's like, it's fantastic. I love, like, the writing's fantastic. The foreshadowing was small snippets that I completely forgot until, like, it essentially told you, and then I'm like, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing.
Yeah. Like, I was like, when it first came up, I remembered the Kalkar. I was like, oh, they're gonna come up.
I didn't remember the Kalkar at all.
I was like, they're gonna come up at the end, because, like, that's the big thing in this book, is the Kalkar. All the clues leading up to it, I was like, oh, they're talking about this boar hunt that's going to be coming up. That's what it's talking about. Oh, they're going to be talking about, you know, battle school. That's what it's talking about. And then you find out, oh yeah, all this little bit of extra information from this hunt, and all this information from the battle school, and all these, like, characters who are like, oh yeah, he's really skilled, and, you know, whatever, comes together, and then finally for the confrontation, you need those skilled people. You have all this information to find it's just
I guess if you're smart enough, like, are really good at putting pieces together, if you read the prologue,
you could,
and then read the small snippets, if you like concentrate on that, you could definitely piece it together what's happening.
Yeah.
But, like, I did not, because I read the prologue, and then the small snippets, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing, but I didn't remember what was happening. I remembered, like, something was weird, but not what was happening. And so, like, I'm like, okay, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Until, like, it told you, like, what's happening. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, that's the big bad guy.
It's like a little mystery novel inside of, like, an adventure novel.
Yeah.
So, like, if you see it and you spot that stuff and you figure it out, awesome, amazing. And if you don't, then you get this whole hidden layer that's exposed, and you're like, this is such a deep novel.
Yeah.
And there's also foreshadowing for the later books as well. You get to introduce a few characters that come up later.
They come up later, yeah.
And there's, like, this is technically... This entire book is a subplot of the main overarching plot. Yeah. That's being built in this entire book. So it's like lots of foreshadowing.
Lots of foreshadowing. It's really good.
Yeah. I didn't see any plot holes, you know?
No, I haven't seen any plot holes
either. Like, it was very well put together. There wasn't any loose ends or anything.
Yeah, there was no loose ends at all. Maybe, like, really quick bonding stuff. Maybe. There's more with Holt and Will. I felt that was really quick. I'm like, oh, that's weird, but, like...
It is a very fast-paced series.
Yes. It'll keep you interested. That's why it was easy to read. Like, there's no really downtime. Yeah. Because the thing that would be downtime... Actually
they just sort of move to a different character.
Yeah, either they move a different character or they time skip.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, he's been training for a couple months.
It's been a couple months. Like, that's it. They've been training. Yeah. Like, there's nothing interesting.
He's been doing his time skip it. Daily life, learning chores, etc.
Doing shit. Right? Like, so they time skip it, so it makes it pretty good.
Yeah, it flows very well.
It flows very well.
Yeah, so 4.5?
I'd say 5.
5. Okay.
Foreshadowing was fantastic. Yeah. Like, it was good.
Yeah, we both
liked it. It was a really good foreshadowing. Yeah. So, for the overall rating, at 4.5.
4.5.
Easy 4.5, because there are some things, because this is a setup novel.
Mm-hmm. But it's still a good like, if you were just to read this novel by itself, you could do that. You don't have to read the rest. No. I would recommend reading the first 2.
3? Isn't it
3? 2 or 3. I don't quite remember myself.
I don't remember what the overall arc is for the first... It's either 1 or 2 books for the overall first arc.
Yeah. So I would recommend those, but if you're just feeling like picking up a single book, trying it out and seeing if you like it, go for it. Yeah. It's short. It's easy to read. Yeah. It's suited for many ages.
Yeah. The age in this one was definitely... like... easy, like, you could read it at any age.
You could read it to kids, and I think they'd be able to pick it up.
Fine. Yeah, I think definitely would be like if your kid's like, yeah, I read Harry Potter, like, you can give them this book and being like, here, read this, because it's easier to read than Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah.
if your kid's 10 and reading Harry Potter, they'd be able to read this book easy.
Or if
and,
you're
like, you wouldn't have to
looking,
worry about it.
if you were like, oh man, I want to spend some time with my kid and I want to read them a story before bed, bedtime story, boom, here you go.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's very easy. So, like, all ages, easy.
Yeah.
If you like this stuff, stick around, like and subscribe, comment.
He does translation stories.
Yes, so, like, if you like this kind of stuff, I do translation stories where it's most of the time Asian stories translated into English.
Korean,
over on Korean, Japanese, Chinese novels. My friend over here, he does fanfictions.
Yeah. So if you've got a fandom that you really like and you're like, I really like this show. Is there any more I could get out of this? Well, let me know and I'll maybe take a look. I'll try and find something for you.
Find something. So yeah. Well, thanks for watching.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Listen, I know I'm the funny man.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm not that funny. I'm sorry to ruin and shatter your reality of who I am. I'm not that funny.
All right.